I'm back from my hibernation and I've got hills to die on. Today we're going to be talking about how the movie Cars is not only one of the best movies, but one of the best stories of all time. A lot of people love this movie and rant and rave about it, but I'm addressing it from a storytelling perspective. The way everything in Cars is communicated, from its world building to having a main character that's likable but also morally deficient, is done masterfully. By the way, fair warning, it's like 3 a.m. and the process of writing the script quickly went from a video essay to a rant-like over-analysis, but I know you're on board for that. If you enjoy this, which I'm sure you will, consider subscribing. And for my OG listeners, thank you for sticking around. I haven't forgotten a single one of you for even 1 second. So strap in, grab yourself a Coke Zero, and let's get into it. In the beginning, we're introduced to Lightning McQueen, who canonically is somewhere in his 20s, when his world is about to be shattered and turned upside down. He's arrogant, cocky, and seems to truly believe he runs the show, that the world revolves around him like he's the sun or something. But after the first race, it's shown that he's actually dealing with some inner demons he likes to pretend aren't there. Notably, his lack of friends. Without his success, what is he? Some empty husk of a car man. Man-car? Car person? Everyone around him, including his manager, who presumably knows him quite well, or not well enough apparently, aren't aware of these struggles. Lightning seems to be holding his cards close to his chest for some fear of not showing weakness. He's supposed to be this hotshot racer that he's been conditioned to believe he is from the very start of his racing career, and possibly even before that. Everyone around him has been constantly applauding him and showering him with praise from the beginning, and his only enemies are his fellow racers. This is evident from the fact that when Strip Weathers tries to give him some advice on how it genuinely matters that Lightning's crew is in line with him in order to actually have a successful race, he daydreams instead. The only part of Weathers' short speech to him that he paid attention to was the compliment at the beginning where Weathers said he's got more talent in one lug nut than a whole lot of cars have in their whole body. Weathers follows this up by calling Lightning stupid, to which Lightning says, "Excuse me?" because he's not used to criticism. An important note here, if it feels like I'm hand-holding you a little and really putting the cookies on the lower shelf, all I'm trying to do is explain that in just a few minutes, Cars has done better character building than the vast majority of movies, books, and TV shows, just by showing natural, albeit well-timed interactions between the characters. There's no, "This is me. Let me explain how I got here," looking at you, Ratatouille. Or one character explicitly saying, "I'm stressed because I'm working 3 jobs and my boss hates me and I'm trying to write this screenplay so I can one day make it to Hollywood and out of this podunk hick hillbilly town where no one understands me." These opening scenes are like a masterclass of show don't tell. And just like that, he gets stranded. Lightning freaks out, he tries to chase Mac down and dramatically fails. Speeds past a sheriff whose engine is misfiring. An interesting note, Lightning mistakes the sheriff's engine misfiring as gunshots, which implies that guns exist in the Cars universe, but that's confirmed in Cars 2, which I do not consider canonical. I'm sorry, I just don't. Bite me. Leave a comment about it. We can argue. But more importantly, this shows that Lightning doesn't know what an engine misfire sounds like. As a race car, he and everyone in his circle got routine maintenance, and they don't have to worry about running out of gas or getting an oil change in time or anything of that sort. This is a far more subtle piece of character building and insight, something I actually didn't notice until literally typing out the script for this video, even though I've seen Cars probably at least 100 times, not even exaggerating. Gets stranded in Radiator Springs, meets Mater, who Lightning is pretty much disgusted by. Mater is the antithesis to everything Lightning believes and stands for, and as a result, he views Mater as being lower than him and treats him like he's stupid and tries to take advantage of him. To be fair though, Mater is pretty airheaded. Lightning goes to court, Doc is the judge. Doc sees Lightning as a race car and tells him to get out. Doc sees Lightning as a representation of the modern racing world that completely threw him aside once he was no longer useful. I mean, if you were given the choice, would you want someone who represented all the things and people you've been burned by hanging around your home? Sally comes in, Lightning fails at flirting. Another note, during this whole court scene, there's only one moment where Lightning is actually concerned for his well-being, and that's when he hears Doc talking about how hard he's going to prosecute whoever destroyed the town. Lightning isn't used to actual threats. His whole life he's been protected. There was never anything to actually worry about. Until now, obviously. He's on his own, kind of braving the wilderness. He doesn't know left from right. All he knows is he wants to leave, which he does try to do, but it runs out of gas. Remember when I said he's not used to having to worry about gas? He literally says, "How could I be out of gas?" It's like it's something that's never happened to him before. This is a reality he's never had to face. Maybe having a team that has your back like Weathers recommended isn't such a bad idea. Reminds me of that island that Syndrome had is based on in The Incredibles. It's called No Man is an Island. It's a play on the phrase No Man is an Island from the 1624 book by John Donne. Humans aren't solitary beings but linked together, like each one of us is a piece of a continent. We can't be self-sufficient. We aren't self-made in the truest sense. We owe a lot to what we have and who we are to others. This is a lesson Lightning has to learn in order to be successful. This applies specifically to him having a team. It's not him that wins the race, it's teamwork. One of the main messages of Cars is to slow down and appreciate the smaller things in life. You shouldn't live life constantly in the fast lane. In the words of the bodybuilder Noel Dazel, if your life is so busy you're eating Ziploc squeezy beef, maybe it's time to hit the brakes. Anyway, enough of the yapping, back to the other thing I'm yapping about. Radiator Springs is, for Lightning, less of a physical location and more of a lesson in humility. At least that's what it turns out to be. It turns out he can learn a lot about what it means to live and be happy from a bunch of small town nobodies. You don't have to be somebody to be somebody. But there is somebody who is somebody in this town. It's Doc Hudson. Lightning, after severely underestimating Doc in a race and making the dumbest excuses imaginable as to why he lost, tries to take Doc's advice on drifting without any nuance at all. In fact, he makes fun of it to Doc's face. Doc actually explained it very well, and if Lightning was just paying attention, he'd probably have realized it was purely practical. Lightning then finds out Doc is a racing legend, the Hudson Hornet with 3 piston cups, which is a very creative name and idea for a racing trophy, although it doesn't translate very well for humans. Like, if I was an athlete and won a marathon, imagine if the trophy was the hamstring goblet. Actually, no, that sounds awesome. I hate running, but sign me up. I'll beat all of you for that hamstring goblet, every one of you. I'll fill my goblet with your tears and use them to rehydrate post-race. Those electrolytes. By the way, so that I can have more of you to beat in the hamstring marathon, please subscribe. Who knows, maybe you'll beat me and you can drink my tears. At least you'll be notified when I put out a new video, provided you hit that sweet, sweet bell. Okay, Lightning discovers the piston cups. This is where the movie stops becoming like, oh, he did what in his cup? Oh, we got jokes. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And starts becoming existential because here's the skinny McPhee. The entire town is a retirement home for things the world decided it didn't need anymore. Route 66 got replaced by the interstate. Town dried up overnight. Nobody stops there anymore. Nobody remembers it or cares. Doc Hudson used to be the guy. He's got 3 piston cups. He had it all. Crashes once. You know what happens. You've seen the movie, hopefully. Hopefully I'm not spoiling this entire freaking movie for you. But if you haven't seen Cars by now, I'm sorry. I'm not sure there's helping you. I'm not sure there's any helping you at all. Like, you might as well just give up. And don't watch Cars 2 though. It's not canon. Lightning thinks fame is permanent because he's young enough to think bad things only happen to other people. Doc is what happens when Lightning's worldview reaches its logical conclusion, but Lightning doesn't understand that and thinks Doc's being selfish by not telling everyone who he really is, but that's hypocritical because who Lightning really is an insecure narcissist, but he doesn't realize it. That's a lot of why Doc hates him immediately. Yeah, the insecure narcissist, there's a lot of like real life overlap there. Like if Lightning was a real person, he'd probably be posting like the shirtless Instagram stuff with like motivational posters or captions, and it's like you have the same 24 hours as everyone else, and while posing or standing in front of a rented Lamborghini like Tai Lopez. One of the smartest things Cars does is refuse to make Lightning instantly sympathetic. A lesser movie would have made him misunderstood, but Lightning actually is selfish. He is arrogant. He does look down on everyone. This is a really important rule of character writing. People become more interesting when their flaws are understandable. Thanos' motivations for snapping away half the universe made sense. That's one of the things that made him such a great villain. Lightning didn't become arrogant in a vacuum. His entire environment engineered him into this person. He's basically a child celebrity athlete without drugs and sudden bankruptcy. Even Mater, the most likable character here, isn't a friend to him initially, he's an obstacle, at least according to Lightning. Everything in Lightning's worldview is transactional, and Radiator Springs slowly dismantles that worldview piece by piece by humbling him, giving him that lesson in humility I referenced earlier. But here's yet another place where we can really learn from the writing. Nobody sits Lightning down. Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how many freaking times I read something and someone, like a fiction story someone is writing, and this is their come to Jesus moment for the characters. Someone sits them down and goes, now this is the true, this is what's actually going on. This is the lesson you need to learn. They like really spell it out for them. Nobody sits Lightning down and goes, now Lightning, this is the true meaning of life is friendship. Like, they don't do that. The writers aren't that forward because they're not stupid. They use the environment of Radiator Springs to force Lightning to experience slowness instead of speed, and it forces him to change because he is speed. It's who he is. And that sounds stupid until you realize the entire movie is built around speed as a metaphor. This is also one of the reasons why he hates Radiator Springs at first, because for the first time in his life, there's nothing to distract him from the fact that he's lonely. I mean, who's he gonna befriend? Mater, the rusty hick tow truck? Doc, the grumpy retired race car who hates Lightning's guts? Ramon? I think the moment where Lightning and Mater truly started becoming friends, at least from Lightning's point of view, is the tractor tipping scene. By the way, I never understood cow tipping, which this is apparently an allegory for. I mean, the poor cow's just chilling out in the pasture or something, just being a cow, and you come along, push it over. Doesn't make you funny, that makes you a bully. A cow bully. You guys seen that movie, The Ant Bully? That's what's gonna happen to you if you tip cows. The tractor tipping scene seems to be the first time that Lightning laughs without it being forced or performative. He genuinely enjoyed himself, and he didn't seem bothered by it. Even the thrill of being chased by Frank didn't impact the fact that he was having fun, just goofing off in a pasture with someone who was starting to feel like his first friend. You could say Mater was Lightning's first friend, but I actually think Mac is a genuine friend of Lightning's, so I'm gonna call Mater his second and closest friend. This was also a bit of a humbling experience for Lightning, because Mater is the only person in the movie who just wanted to hang out because he actually liked Lightning. Everyone else seemed to want something. What Lightning needed to do was to slow down, and this scene accomplished that. Life doesn't always have to be lived in the fast lane, once again. And, once again, one of the main points of this film, its hill to die on, so to speak, that every great story has, is that modern life is becoming too fast for human connection. It's okay to take the long way home to enjoy the scenery. Not everything has to be a deadline. Rushing all the time, counting every second, what's all that for? Like, what's the end goal? Progress isn't evil, and time management is a skill everyone should have, but not at the cost of taking away our humanity and connections. Something valuable gets lost when speed is the only thing that's valued. Lightning is learning this, and once that emotional groundwork is in place, the film starts doing something structurally really important, which is that it stops being about who Lightning McQueen is in the abstract sense, and becomes about who he actually is when he's placed in an environment that no longer reinforces the identity that he's built his entire life around. He works in the town, he contributes to its repair, he interacts with its residents in contexts that have no immediate competitive or transactional payoff, and what makes the progression so effective is that none of it is framed as a grand transformation in the moment it is happening, since from Lightning's perspective, he's still fundamentally waiting for his real life to resume. While from the audience's perspective, it becomes increasingly clear that this definition of real life is already being quietly undermined by the experiences he's having in the present. This creates a kind of dual narrative tension where nothing externally significant appears to change, yet internally, the film is steadily introducing an entirely different value system through accumulation rather than exposition, where familiarity replaces resistance and participation replaces avoidance without Lightning ever consciously deciding to adopt a new worldview. If this was a poorly written story, you'd probably have a section in there somewhere at about this part that would go something like, and Lightning slowly decided to start thinking long and hard about why he is the way he is and begins to question his own belief system. But this movie doesn't do that because the writers weren't lazy. For the billionth time, they're operating on a Sensei Master Kung Fu plus Ultra Senpai Super Saiyan level of show don't tell. I'm gradually putting together a list. I just hit my computer with my hand. And gradually putting together a list of undisputed, time-tested, no ifs and buts or exceptions laws for writing. Barkey's laws. So here's numero uno. Barkey's law number 1. The audience isn't stupid. Don't treat them like they are. Everyone knows at this point that Lightning is beginning to change his worldview. We can see it in the way he acts. He's still a hotshot racer, but his rough edges are getting sanded down. He's no longer irritated with Mater or trying to use him. He's now a friend he can begin to trust. But it's not obvious Lightning even realizes this change. Just like when people change in real life, they don't always notice the change, at least not at first. Once Cars establishes this change, it starts tightening the focus again by bringing the outside world back into view, but it doesn't do this as something he's already emotionally prepared to re-enter. The way he does it is very interesting because it now feels slightly misaligned with who he has quietly become while he wasn't paying attention. That's a really important thing to all of this is really important. Study this freaking movie Like your life depends on it if you're trying to get better at writing or storytelling, or if you're just curious and you want to know what a good story looks like. Because when I watch a movie, my gosh, I'll save that rant for later. The return to racing is not presented as a triumphant reclamation of identity in the way it would be in a more conventional sports narrative. It's a disruption of a new equilibrium that has formed in Radiator Springs, where Lightning has almost unintentionally begun to exist as a part of something that's not centered around himself. For once, it's not all about him. He realizes, as he's being coerced into leaving, that he finally got to be a part of something where he wasn't a spectacle and he liked it. But now he's lost it and the only friend he's ever had. And it's not a clean separation. His experiences in Radiator Springs, as we've already gone over, had changed him as a person, even though he's still mentally framing himself as the same person who arrived there at the beginning of the story. Move on to the final race. What exactly has changed about Lightning McQueen? His internal hierarchy of values, because when he is finally faced with the decision of whether to secure the win or step out of it in order to protect someone else, his actions show what kind of identity he's willing to prioritize when those two things come into conflict. The choice would have been almost automatic at the beginning of the story, since earlier versions of him would not even register it as a dilemma in the first place. But now it exists as a genuine tension point, because he has been exposed to an entirely different structure of meaning in Radiator Springs. He knows that value isn't necessarily tied to achievement. Lightning realizes that winning a race isn't worth sacrificing morality. What do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your soul? Boom, that's another hill to die on. And with that, we've reached the end of this analysis. Great movie, great storytelling, no dull moments. Unless you're a kid, then the whole "this is what Radiator Springs used to be like" sequence was boring. The beginning foreshadowed the end, and the end brought it full circle. There are a few more hills to die on with this movie. A hill to die on, by the way, is the overarching message of the story, the reason the story exists. All the greatest stories ever told have their own hill to die on. Some more hills to die on for Cars are: experience will always beat arrogance. You can be so laser focused on one thing that you forget what's important. No matter who it is you meet, you can always learn something from them, even if what you learn is what not to do. And don't judge a book by its cover, or in this case, a person. Now, what I was referencing earlier, I was talking about, earlier in the video I said I'll save the rant for later. I was talking about specifically why it's very useful for people who, even if they aren't necessarily interested in storytelling, why it's still useful for them to study the movie, to know what a good story is. Because when I watch a movie, I used to not watch the movie and go, "Oh, that was a really good movie," or "Oh, that was a really bad movie." I just think it's, "Oh, okay, that was a movie. It's alright." Then I started paying attention and using my brain. And realizing that, hey, the reason I didn't really like this movie that much, or like I wouldn't watch it again or recommend it to somebody, that's an issue with the movie, it's not with me. Like, something's wrong with this movie to make me not like it. And I found that most of the time, there are obviously exceptions to it. There will always be exceptions to this, especially with me, because I'm so hypercritical. A lot of times when I watch a movie and I'm like, man, that really wasn't that good. That was not a very creative movie at all. And then every person I say that to is like, oh my gosh, they act like I just shot their grandma. Like, I don't understand. They act like a snake just popped out of a hole in the ground and bit them and just came out like, just came at them, full. It makes that noise too. It goes like that. That's why they're so shocked. But the thing is, there are plenty of movies that I think are pretty good that I've never heard anyone talk about. Like, if you're looking for an interesting movie that has a good plot and some interesting moments, it's a good date night movie. It's called The Naked Jungle, and it is not what it sounds like. Just look it up. It's an older movie, but it's interesting. And there are some movies that like one of the videos I'm gonna come up with soon is about The Princess Bride. I hate that movie. I think it's awful. I think it's poorly written. I think one of the only reason people like it is because it's one of those movies that you're just supposed to like. Like, everyone is just supposed to like Pulp Fiction. I've never actually seen Pulp Fiction. I don't really have a desire to watch it, but I've heard it's good, and it's like, okay, I can accept the fact that it's iconic, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's good without actually having seen it like myself, because storytelling is art, but it is a much less subjective kind of art. That's another hill to die on. This is turning into Barky's rant. I don't think art is subjective. I really don't. I don't know, I'm probably gonna lose some people with that. Yo, unsubscribe. Do it. If you're gonna unsubscribe because of this. Anyway. Oh man, I just lost my whole audience. That's okay. Art, it's kind of like music, to where it's like, okay, I don't really see the appeal, but I'm glad you like it. There's that, And then there's, oh my gosh, this person is actually because a good part of art is talent. And with art, they're like, oh, you need to know the rules in order to break them. It's like, no, stop it. You third grade English teacher level quips. You got a whole freaking tool belt full of them. You just throw them out. Like, oh, you need to know the rules in order to break them. But when you're writing your essays, don't you dare break them or else I'm gonna friggin' have a seizure. There's that aspect to it. Like, I don't think Picasso was a good painter. I really don't. You're like, what? He's Picasso. It's like, look up Picasso's paintings. It's like, what? It's like a 3-year-old except with straight lines instead of wavy ones, you know? Like, ooh. Yeah, that's another thing. They'll like read out poetry, or not poetry. They'll read out like an essay from like some famous writer. I forget who it is. I've only heard this trivia fact once. They read out an essay from a famous writer, and they're like, oh, what makes it so wonderful is that he knew that. They act like they can see into the person's soul or something. They're like, he knew that the literary norm was to include commas where they are grammatically appropriate, but he, being so daring and brave, broke these literary norms. And the essay doesn't have any commas in it at all. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so brave. No, it's just bad grammar. My gosh. If you want to have that and go, oh, that's really interesting. I didn't use commas. I wonder what was going on with that. That's one thing. But to say, oh, well, I personally like his writing, so he must have had a very good reason that I sympathize with in order to do it. Or that is his reason for having done it. It's like, come on. Maybe he just had a bad day. Just forgot what a comma was, you know? Anyway, that was a nice little rant at the end there, wasn't it? It was loosely related to cars, because it did have to do with storytelling, but, you know, whatever. I think I'll leave it in just because I think you guys will enjoy a little bit more of my personality coming out, instead of just me reading off a script. Like, the last 10 minutes is probably just completely unscripted. Let me know if you guys kind of like this video essay format, if it tickles your fancy. There's always another video in the pipeline, always a video I'm working on, so definitely like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I always read every comment. Until then, Barky out.